Next up, let's talk about the closures. So, what are the closures? In fact, many programmers who have years and years of experience are not at all good in closures. So, let me clear up all that thing, and believe me, after watching this movie, the closures will be so much clear in your mind. So, what are the closures? Closures are simply a special type of functions, and that's all about it you need to remember. So, a closure is a special function that doesn't have a name. So if it doesn't have a name, how we are gonna call them? You simply don't call them. You just use them and forget about them. And you might be saying that's not an advantage because programming is all about not repeating the codes. So if we just define a function once, we can use it multiple times. But there are some different examples and the usage of the closures out here. So how the language Swift is being implemented in the iOS 3, there is a heavy usage of the closures, and they just say write a clean code and a clutter-free code and just use it once and forget about it. So let me tell you what it means by that. So on the technical terms, closures are kind of a self-contained block, and if you're coming from any other language, you might heard about the terms like blocks in C and Objective-C, or lambdas in the language like Python. And although the implementation is exactly the same, but still I would say that Swift has got an upper hand in using and implementing the closures in iOS 10. I have been a programmer in Python for over many years, I still do, and I have seen lambdas are very kind of a low rated over there, and nobody uses it that much as we are going to use in the iOS and the Swift examples out there. So the basic goal of the Swift closure is to write clean and clear style of the code with optimization that's encourage the very short and clutter-free syntax in the common scenario. So how does a closure looks like? So in order to make a closure, let me just type in a very simple hello world out there closure. Obviously it's gonna give us an error because it has a special place where we can use them. It's not like we can use it anywhere out there, but still, let me tell you how you can convert a function into a simple closure. So in the function, we use a keyword like a simple function, and then what we do, we give a name to the function. Let's just say hello. That's gonna be our function. Right now, let's just say it doesn't take any parameter, or let's just say it takes a parameter. It takes a name, and that name is of type string, and let's just say that's it. And it does expect a return type as well. Let me make it a little bit out there and a little bit bigger as well. Okay, so it does expect a return type out there. Let's say in this case it's gonna be, let's just say string, and thereafter you just use these and you just say let me print saying hello. There we go. So this is our simplest function that we can have here, and it's giving us a problem. Let me just see what the problem. It says return type is missing, so we need to return something, or let's just return a value directly. So let's just say I want to say return and return saying hello. There we go. Okay, now it's good. And in case I want to use the hello syntax, I can simply say hello home, and it will be saying hello. That's it. That's pretty much all about it. So still it has a problem because I'm not passing it into the string. I need to pass it as a string. There we go. And it says hello. So how we can convert this simple function, which I've created after lots of errors, and how can I convert it into the closure? Now simply, the very first task is you remove the keyword func and the name of it. Obviously it's gonna get us an error because this is a function and this is no place to define the closure, but don't worry, I'll give you an example of that as well. Bear with me with the errors for a moment. So let me in fact just copy this so that we can comment out everything and can place things for you. So remove these guys out there. There we go. That's the step number one. Now the next thing is move everything which you have placed outside, which is including the parameter and return type, inside the curly braces. So let's do that. That's the step number two. So that's the step number two. And thereafter, you need to place one more keyword that says in, and that's it. Now obviously it's giving us an error because this is not a right place to define a closure. Closure do have a special place where you can use and define them. So now right now this is actually a perfect closure. So let me just comment it out for you. So you have got the steps out here. Just define a function, remove the name here, and just place parameters and return type inside the curly braces and use the keyword in out there. Okay, so this is one example that I have given to you, but it's not a working example. So let's try out a working example here. So let's just put out here. So let's define an array. Let's call it as names. And this array is gonna have multiple names out there. And you guessed it right. I'm gonna give us the name that are already familiar to us. So let's give us the Earth, Pluto, the Mars. Let's have one more, Saturn, or we can have others as well, but I think let's just call this as new one. Okay, that's funny. Okay, so this is an array that I've got, but what I want to do is I want to do a sorting on this array. Yes, I can write a function to do this, and writing a function would be much more easier out here. So your typical approach would be to write a function. Let's just write it for you. So let's just call this as sort, and this is gonna take a couple of parameters. First of all, it's gonna take s1 as a string, which is gonna be a type of string, and comma underscore s2. This is a common syntax that I'm following, nothing new. There we go, string. It is going to return us a simple boolean. Let's just say I'm defining, let's just say bool values, and thereafter we have these parentheses. Let's just return simply s1 is, let's just say, greater than s2. So there we go, our function is out here. But okay, so let's just try to use it out here. Now don't go with what the syntax is going on and how the things are working. We are now trying to understand that how functions can be, we can get rid of these functions and implement the closure out there, and you will see in a minute that how the things are easier out here. So let's just call this let's just create a var new names, and new names is gonna have, let's just apply this names dot, and let's just use sorted out here, which is just out here, and in that I'm gonna use a very good thing. So this is predefined, I'm not using anything out here. So I'm gonna say is ordered before, and this is a built-in, and I'm gonna use my function which I have defined, and that name is sort. So let's just see. Now right now it's saying that, let me just expand it a little, and we can see that it has actually sorted out everything out for us. For example, here the Saturn based on S, P, N, and all these. If I just reverse this out here, oops, not like that. Okay, if we reverse this, now everything is being sorted out. So this is a built-in thing, and what it expects you to give as in simple, this is not a return type like sort. This is not like string, this is not integer, this is pre-built in, this is pre-cooked up. And I'm giving it a function which is just a sort. So obviously I can sort my values, I can sort my arrays using this sorted method which takes a simple function. Now yes, this is a special place where you can actually forget about defining a function at the top just to sort the things. You can define the functions on the go here. So let me just copy this line here and try to show you another method by which you can do this. So this expects a simple function to be passed on, but instead of passing a function, I can pass on a closure here. So what I can do, I can just write exactly the same logic that I have there. So for example, let me just exactly copy the things out here. So there we go. So what I'll be doing is simply copy and pasting it out here. So obviously I have got rid of the keyword func, but what I need to do is simply to move these things inside the curly braces from here to, oops, we need to get rid of the name as well. And thereafter we move from this guy to this bool. let me cut this and move it inside these pair of curly braces. So there we go. Let's place it there. Okay, that's the step number 1. Now the next thing that you have to do is use a keyword in. There we go, in. So let's verify that again. So is sorted before is there, and since we are already having these curly braces, we don't need these guys. These are extra out here. And similarly, we don't need these guys. Already we haven't copied this guy. Okay, so curly braces are there. Then in the parenthesis, we got s1 string, s2 string, and return type, which is a bool, and we are saying in, and then I'm saying just return s1 is less than s2. And then we have a curly brace and things like that. So this is good. Now the only error that we are getting is the new names, because we cannot actually use that. We cannot declare things multiple times. So let's say it's a newer names this time. And we noticed one very interesting thing, that it does the job and we don't need to define the functions again and again. Don't worry, I'm going to repeat everything out there, so just bear with me. So my goal was only to just get rid of this function, extra line of code, and just define the function on the go. And I was able to do this. In fact, I can do this in a much simpler syntax as well, but just to explain the things and follow the syntax, get rid of the func, get rid of the name, move everything out here into the curly braces and use the keyword in, and that's it. Now you might be thinking this is too much of the things that I really don't want to do. Okay. Now the implementation of the Swift into the iOS has been done in such a remarkable manner that you will be doing this syntax quite a lot. There are a lot of functions that require the functions, and to define a new function for them is really bad thing. You want to define the functions on the go, and this is one method out there. Yes, I can sort out the things for you, like for example, let me just create a new one and new me, and let's just define again. It's gonna be simple, so let's just call this as names dot use the sorted method out there, and in the sorted method it's expecting me to write is ordered before, and it expects me to write a simple function or write a closure. But let me show you how easy it can become. Let me just write it quickly here for you. And it's gonna say, let's just say s1 comma s2 and in s1 less than or greater than s2. There we go, that's it. So this is again a really quick way of defining the things, and I can just see that it just gives us a false because we are just expecting it. But I can use another keyword like, there we go, and can write the things in a much smaller manner out there. So closures do have variety of implementation, variety of functionalities and things like that. We will talk about them later on, what this syntax mean, how I was able to write this very easily, and why it's not giving us what we are expecting, why it's giving us all these things like false and everything. But again, do remember that when it defines things like that, it just gives a comparison, not the arrays. It just says, is it greater than or not? So we are just finding out a boolean values, and based on that we can do variety of stuff. While in other cases we are just saying return me everything out there and just sort it out there, just do it again and again. But again, the whole point is just to follow up the syntax and try to introduce the closure for all those people who are new into the C or new into the Swift actually. Okay, quickly summarizing the thing, this is a function. How do we convert the function into the closure? Remove the func keyword, remove the name, and move everything from the parenthesis to the return type inside the curly braces. There we go, you have your closure.